There's a lot of misinformation floating around online, and the Verify team is here to get you the facts about what you, the viewers, are questioning.
Meow! Huples cat. So I would also point out that car crashes and opioid deaths and flu deaths in 2015, loss of life expectancy from those horrible societal evils and problems, actually is nowhere near as bad as COVID-19 in less than a year. Nowhere near as bad. That's an important fact. There is nothing going on in December of 2020 that is a more clear and present danger to your personal survivability and life expectancy than COVID-19 disease. Nothing. Nothing approaches this at all.
A few weeks ago, we put out a story that verified that more people have died from COVID-19 in 8 months than died in the seasonal flu in 5 years. Some people were critical of those COVID numbers, claiming things like car crash deaths are also counted as COVID deaths to inflate the numbers. We heard your comments and took these claims back to our experts. Let's verify. Are car crash deaths being reported as COVID-19 deaths? Here are sources. Dr. Robert Anderson. He's the chief of the Mortality Statistics Branch for the National Center of Health Statistics at the CDC. We also talked with a spokesperson for the Florida Health Department in Orange County.
It's important to understand that there are really two streams of information on deaths coming in to the CDC with regard to COVID-19.
Dr. Anderson says those two streams are the case surveillance system and death certificates. Case surveillance is the quickest way to get data. Healthcare providers mark whether a patient died from COVID-19 and send that information to the state health department and the CDC. Think of that as preliminary data. Then there's the death certificate. That's submitted to the state after a medical examiner or coroner has determined the official cause of death. And that is the final data.
The death certificates tend to lag the case reports by about 2 weeks. So in some cases, a death may be flagged as a COVID death initially in the case reporting, but when the death certificate comes in, it may show something different.
Something like this happened in Orlando, Florida over the summer. A man who died in a motorcycle accident was initially marked down as a COVID-19 death. Our researchers got information straight from that spokesperson with the Florida Health Department in Orange County. This spokesperson says that the man tested positive for COVID-19 before dying, and COVID-19 was listed as a cause of death. That spokesperson says that after the medical examiner and epidemiologist reviewed the death, they removed it from the COVID fatality list. So we can verify. While COVID-19 could be listed in a case surveillance report, our experts say it would be corrected on the death certificate.
American official figures are about to go higher in loss of life than World War II. World War II, even for America, did last about, I think, 3.5 years. So in about 9 months, you have managed to kill officially more people than died in 3.5 years fighting World War II in the United States. And I believe the figures are actually a lot higher than that by about 25 to 30%. One of the obvious things is there is clear evidence that the actual official numbers are actually being repressed heavily. And one of the things I want to show is this video showing what happened to a scientist who whistle blew on Florida, because Florida was actively trying to remove actual COVID-19 death rates. And so she quit her job or was fired or whatever. And she's been running a parallel site at home showing what she believes is the actual Floridian death rates.
New at 11, FDLE agents raided the home of Florida's former coronavirus data scientist, and she shared the video on Twitter.
Outside.
Who else is in the house, ma'am?
My 2 children and my husband.
Where's your husband at?
Calm down. Calm down.
You want the children down?
Calm them all down.
Mr. Jones, come down the stairs, now!
Rebecca Jones designed and managed the state's online COVID dashboard. You might remember back in May, Jones claimed she was wrongly fired because she wouldn't manipulate coronavirus data. Jones tweeted a video saying law enforcement showed up at her home this morning and took, quote, all my hardware and tech. She said they, quote, pointed a gun in my face. They pointed guns at my kids. FDLE told us they believe someone at the home illegally accessed a Department of Health messaging system, which is for emergencies only. Jones spoke about the incident on CNN tonight.
I haven't had access to any systems at DOH for over 6 months. I'm not a hacker. As the governor pointed out many months ago, I'm not that tech savvy and have no interest in reaching out to DOH.
FDLE released a statement saying, in part, agents knocked and called Ms. Jones, both announcing the search warrant and encouraging her to cooperate. Ms. Jones refused to come to the door for 20 minutes and hung up on agents. After several attempts, Ms. Jones allowed agents inside. Agents entered the home in accordance with normal protocols and seized several devices that will be forensically analyzed. FDLE added that at no time were weapons pointed at anyone in the home.
So they decided to attack her and walk into her house, and although they didn't actually draw a gun and point it at anybody, they did draw guns. This sort of action will inhibit people from collecting and spreading data in real time that's actually probably valid. Now, if she was sending out data that's actually fake and designed to frighten everybody, then maybe this sort of heavy action would be accounted for. And you notice she was smart about it. She left the video on the kitchen table so they couldn't take it off her. Because that's another thing the law enforcement are doing now. They are not just taking every piece of electronics you have in your house and then scanning it for supposed criminal activity, wiping it out. This seems to be going on. Now, I have no direct evidence of this. You can call this a conspiracy theory, but I think this is what is actually going on. There are areas of the world where the governments are so angry at COVID-19 destroying their economy and their plans that they're using extremely draconian measures to repress evidence of reality. And that, coupled with a large number of people out there who want to repress reality, is very, very frightening. So where does this leave you at the end of the day? It leaves you at the end of the day in the same position you were in the beginning of February. You wear a mask the best you can, preferably N95 if it's going to be prolonged contact, and glasses or a face shield whenever you are close to people. This means within 6 meters, 6 yards of people indoors. It means that you keep your distance from people and family. You don't have small gatherings this Christmas. Do not enter or have people enter your household who aren't already living there. It's not something that's worth doing. We are very close to probably having efficient vaccines. Most of the population should be vaccinated by this time next year. This is not the time to throw away your life or develop long COVID simply because you need to celebrate Christmas with your cousin or your mother. We have elderly parents locked down, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what's going on in Canada with Kitty, who has promised to actually appear on camera. I want her to talk about her actual lived experience over the last few months as a registered nurse in critical care in Toronto. I want her to talk about how it's affecting her, how it's affecting her family, how it's affecting her co-workers. And I also wanted to talk a bit about how she perceives vaccination and how she perceives quite a few other things. In of itself, it's personal opinion, but I think it's vital to actually listen to as many voices from the front line as possible. The governments are underplaying COVID-19 in a desperate attempt to keep businesses open at a time they should have all been shut down for months. And they could have been shut down for months in the first world, in the rich world, by using government debt transference to people. I believe the figure is $200,000 American dollars per American have been spent on COVID-19 economic stimulus at this point. Quite clearly, the vast majority of Americans did not get $200,000. Those are the sort of questions people need to start asking and not stop asking until they get answers. And they need to stop voting for people that are not prepared when an SHTF occurs to admit it's occurring or to deal with it in ways that protect the vast majority of the population. It isn't important what the Dow Jones is. What's important is if your neighbours are about to lose their car or their house or can't make rent due to being laid off. It is a temporary SHTF, but if we continue on this path of ignoring 90% of the people who are casualties of it economically, if we continue on the path of underplaying the severity of the illness, we will, as a society, cause ourselves potentially to collapse. And that's a strong word. And I'm not convinced at this point we are going to collapse. I do believe we're experiencing the early signs of a societal collapse. But I do believe COVID-19 is quite clearly a temporary pandemic, and it doesn't kill as many as it could have done. If the death rate was 5 to 10%, I think we'd be having a whole different conversation right now. And probably at this point, I wouldn't be making videos. I'd be bugged out. Anyway, that's all from me. Feel free to talk below, feel free to ask questions. What I'm not doing anymore is I'm not actually proving that hydroxy doesn't work. I'm not proving that the death rate is what I say it is. I'm not proving all of those things that the anti-science, anti-mask, anti-life, anti-American, anti-human people are continuing to push. What you think about this disease is fine, but if you're not taking severe precautions to prevent yourself getting it in December of 2020, please sit down and have a hard talk to yourself. Why on earth are you doing it? Why are you so determined to underplay a pandemic? There's good reasons why people are prepared to do that. But if you're one of those people, have a talk to yourself. Is it actually worth what you're doing and not doing because of what you believe to be the case, when the vast majority of the world's doctors, nurses and scientists are telling you this is a killing pandemic? And I'm not sure why people are still going on about the TikTok nurses who were disgusting, but I understand why. We cleared out whole units and had no admissions waiting for a surge, where in some places like Canada never really came. Well, it's coming now, so get a grip. Doodles. This was a Thirsty Cat production 2020.